In today's episode of Staying Busy to Stay Grounded, I try to learn how to crochet. This video is not intended as the way, the only way, or the right way to learn how to crochet. If you choose to follow these steps, you do so at your own risk. Step 1. I believe that for me, great things start with a prayer and a cup of tea. Step 2. I got a hook and some yarn and started with my first quick and easy project I had. There are plenty of videos on YouTube. They're all great. I just picked one to get used to the hook and yarn and find the best way for me to hold them. Making this hat required one easy stitch, single crochet. I missed a stitch here and there. The hat ended up with an uneven seam and, even worse, a small pom-pom. Step 3. I got more yarn and crochet hooks because what better way to hold myself back from diving into something entirely different after just one hat than to say, well, now that I bought all this stuff, I can't let it or the money spent on it go to waste. Step 4. I chose one of my paintings to crochet to learn how to change colors in crochet and turn any image into a crocheted something. For that I needed to turn the painting into a grafkin, which looked like a cross-stitch pattern for me. Something I'm familiar with. I uploaded a photo of the painting to a cross-stitch pattern maker. This is the graph I got, 93 by 146 stitches. For crochet, this would be 146 rows, 93 stitches in each row. I ended up doing just 87 instead of 93. Here's a little sample I did before I started working on 146 rows. Again, there's so many videos on tapestry crochet, I believe it's called, on YouTube. Working with 2 colors is not the same as managing more than 10. It took me a few rows, and by a few I mean the first 20 or more, to wrap my head around what's called carry yarn in those first rows. I also tried to use as many colors as I could, all the colors shown in the grafkin, and if there was a color that I didn't have, I would substitute it with the closest one to it, and that only made everything look confusing. So after those first 20 rows or so, I try to keep the colors to a minimum. For example, if in the same wing, these are butterfly wings by the way, if the grafkin showed that there are 2 or more shades of yellow, I would use one shade for all 3. It also helped to refer back to the original paintings to double check where certain shades had to be omitted to not lose the design and end up with something that looks nothing like butterfly wings. The first rows were slow. It took me 40 to 50 minutes to finish one row, but once I got the hang of carrying my yarn and everything else, it was smooth sailing for the most part. After more than 88 hours and the most pain I ever felt in my neck and forearm because I hold my crochet hook with such tension like it's a magical divine dagger and I'm fighting for my life, all that was left to do was weave in the ends. Step 5. A brief moment of pride to savor what I thought at first were gratifying results. The celebratory moment is short-lived, and when this happens, when self-doubt starts to creep in, it usually means that I need to take a break. Step 6. I took a break from crocheting and tried to make some crochet hooks from toothbrushes and paintbrushes. Step 7. To preserve the crocheted butterfly thing, I decided to make a garment with it, laid out on the back of this jacket without those first rows. It looked like 40% of a jacket already crocheted, and all I had to crochet were sleeves, this part here, that trapezoid, the front, and all the details in it. 13 pieces in total. After I trimmed off the unwanted part, I started working on the 13 pieces. There was always a possibility that I was oversimplifying things in my head and that making a jacket is not as straightforward as crocheting 13 simple geometrical parts and stitching them together. I feel like I have the tendency to either oversimplify or overthink things when I'm trying to learn something new. And while there could be plenty of reasons behind the overthinking, I feel like it's mostly self-sabotage in disguise. So if I have to dumb things down to be confident enough to try and keep trying, then that is exactly what I'm going to do. Aside from the fact that I wanted to save the crocheted butterfly piece, to crochet this jacket was also how I thought I could learn a couple more stitches, how to crochet buttonholes, how to increase and decrease, and ribbing. The thinking went that if I learn these things plus what I learned from the butterfly piece, maybe I'll be able to crochet pretty much anything I want, or a bad version of anything I want. For measurement, I would refer back to the jacket model as I was crocheting. And after 23 hours, it was time to seam the pieces together. Just like everything that I had to look up, starting from how to make a slip knot, how to seam 2 crochet pieces together is no different, meaning there's more than one way to do it. The key here is to not overthink it. All methods work. It'll take more than a hat and a jacket to find out my favorite ways to do things in crochet. I don't look like I loved how the jacket came out, but I did love it. Had I known that crochet was going to be such a great way to quiet the mind, I would have embarked on my crochet journey years ago.